My boss denied me 4 days for my husband's funeral. The job comes first. That same night, I traveled to another country with an offer that left him without employees. I never thought the man who applauded my exemplary dedication every Christmas would be the same one to stomp on my heart when it was at its most fragile. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if you, for a second, feel like this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep getting this off my chest. My name is Angela Miller. I am 63 years old. For 18 years, I worked as an administrative coordinator at Vance Construction, a mid-sized company in the heart of Manhattan, near Chelsea Market. Every morning at 7 o'clock sharp, I'd get off the subway at Grand Central with my worn leather tote bag and my thermos of homemade coffee, walking down those crowded sidewalks that smelled of roasted nuts and the New York hustle. My uniform was always the same: a white blouse, a gray knee-length skirt, and comfortable black shoes that had lost their original shine after thousands of trips down office hallways. In the left pocket of my blouse, I always carried a small photo of Tom, my husband of 35 years, smiling with that salt and pepper beard he refused to trim completely. Tom worked as an electrician on small jobs all over the city. Every dawn, he would leave before I did, with his metal toolbox that jingled like little bells as he walked, kissing my forehead and whispering, "Be safe today, honey. See you at dinner." That routine was our symphony for more than 3 decades. Tuesday, October 15th, changed everything. It was 3 in the afternoon. I was reviewing supplier invoices at my desk, next to the window overlooking the building's inner courtyard. I always liked that spot because I could see the children from the nearby school playing during recess. Their laughter reminded me of our son, Jason, when he was little, running through the halls of our house in Queens. The phone rang with that sharp tone that always startled me when I was focused. "Mrs. Miller? This is Bellevue Hospital. Your husband, Thomas Miller, has had a heart attack. We need you to come immediately." The words fell on me like shattered glass. I dropped my pen. My hand trembled so much that I couldn't hang up the phone correctly on the first try. I ran through those hallways like I had never run in my life. My comfortable shoes became obstacles as I rushed down the subway stairs, pushing past people, whispering, "Sorry, sorry," with tears I didn't know had started to fall. I arrived at the hospital with my heart pounding against my chest like a hammer. The smell of disinfectant made me dizzy. The white lights of the hallway blinded me for a moment. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. We did everything we could." Tom had died alone, on a bench in Washington Square Park while waiting for the bus. He had a Trader Joe's bag in his hands. Sliced bread, milk, Nilla wafers, the things I had texted him to get that morning. His last act on this earth was to buy me cookies. I collapsed into the blue plastic hospital chair. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The pain was so deep I couldn't find a sound to express it. I just trembled, like a leaf in October, like a woman who had just lost her life partner. That night, I slept hugging his pillow, which still smelled of his cheap cologne and the anti-dandruff shampoo he used religiously every Sunday. The next day, Wednesday morning, I arrived at the office with swollen eyes and a broken soul. I needed to speak with Mr. Julian Vance, my boss for all those years, the man who knew my husband, who had come to our house for Christmas dinners, who had watched our son grow up. His office had that beige carpet that crunched under my feet, the dark wood desk piled with papers, and that large window with a view of all of Park Avenue. Mr. Vance was typing on his computer in his impeccable white shirt and perfectly knotted navy blue tie. He didn't look up when I knocked on the door. "Mr. Vance, I need to speak with you," I said, my voice breaking. "What is it, Angela? But make it quick. I have a meeting with the partners at 10. I swallowed hard. The words felt like stones in my throat. "My husband, Tom, passed away yesterday. A heart attack. I need to request 4 days of leave. The funeral is on Saturday, but there's so much paperwork, and I can't focus on anything right now. I expected compassion. I expected a hug. I expected him to at least look up from his computer. Instead, he kept typing. His fingers tapped the keys with a coldness that sent a chill down my spine. "Angela, life goes on. We all lose someone sooner or later. But that doesn't mean the world stops." My heart froze. "You know you can't just abandon everything like this. We're at the end of the quarter. The reports are due Friday. The clients are waiting for their invoices. I can't give you 4 days. Take 1, 2 at the most. And that will have to be enough. 1? I whispered. Mr. Vance. He was my husband of 35 years. He finally looked up. His eyes were 2 gray stones, without a drop of humanity. And I've been your boss for 18 years. We all have losses here, Angela. But the job comes first. Always. Is that clear? I felt nauseous. My legs trembled. I walked out of that office like a ghost, through hallways that suddenly felt alien, cold, hostile. He didn't offer his condolences. He didn't ask if I needed anything. He gave me an order. That afternoon, while organizing the papers for the wake, I received a call that would change my life forever. It was Lucy Chen, my old colleague who now worked in Austin. Her voice sounded different, more confident, freer than I remembered from our days together at Vance Construction. Angela, I just heard about Tom. You have no idea how sorry I am, really. But I'm also calling about something else. Something that might interest you. I told her what had happened with Mr. Vance. How he had denied me the days off. How he had treated me like a machine without feelings. Lucy was silent for a long moment. That man is a bastard, she finally muttered. Angela, listen to me carefully. Here in Austin, at the company where I work now, they're looking for someone with real experience. Someone who knows how to manage teams, who understands administration, who has humanity. I told them about you. My heart skipped a beat. But I immediately thought of all the reasons it was impossible. My age, my lack of a college degree, my entire life built in New York. While Lucy talked about decent salaries and bosses who treated their employees like people, my mind traveled back, remembering all the years I had given to that company, all the sacrifices I had made, believing they would one day be recognized. I remembered when our son Jason was in high school and we needed extra money for his books and school trips. Mr. Vance had allowed me to work on Saturday mornings, organizing files in the building's damp basement, among dusty boxes and a smell of mold that gave me headaches. 4 extra hours every week for 2 years, without additional pay, only with the promise that it would be taken into account for my annual review. The review never came. I remembered the countless times I had stayed until 9 at night, finishing reports that weren't my responsibility, while Tom ate dinner alone in our small kitchen, reheating the food I had prepared at dawn. He never complained. He just left my plate covered with aluminum foil and a note, I love you. Eat something before you sleep. I remembered when the previous secretary, Karen, quit overnight because her husband had been hitting her. I not only took over her duties for 6 months without a pay raise, but I also helped her find a lawyer, went with her to file a report, and lent her money for the security deposit on her new apartment. Karen hugged me, crying, the day she left. You're an angel, Angela. I couldn't have gotten out of that hell without you. Mr. Vance only said, Good. Now we won't have to look for a replacement. I remembered the Christmases when I organized the company parties at my own house. I bought the honey-baked ham with my own salary, cooked a turkey with all the trimmings for 20 people, decorated my living room with my own Christmas ornaments. The employees would arrive with their spouses and children, filling my house with laughter and joy, and Mr. Vance would take all the credit. Our Angela organizes these dinners so well, he would say to important clients, while I served the dessert I had started preparing at 5 in the morning. I remembered when my mother-in-law, Tom's mother, got sick with Alzheimer's. We needed a caregiver, but our savings weren't enough. I asked Mr. Vance for a company loan, from the same funds he used to change his Mercedes every 2 years. He looked at me as if I had asked him to donate a kidney. Employee loans create dangerous precedents, Angela. But I can give you extra shifts on the weekends. I worked every Saturday and Sunday for an entire year. I cleaned offices, organized storage rooms, even washed the executive bathrooms, all to pay for a kind woman from the Dominican Republic to care for my mother-in-law with the tenderness she deserved. Mr. Vance bought a country house in the Hamptons that same year. I remembered when my son Jason married Patricia, that girl from a wealthy family who always looked at me with barely concealed disdain. I worked overtime for 8 months to give them a honeymoon in Italy as a gift. I wanted my son to have what I could never give him, A perfect start. Patricia never thanked me. Jason didn't either. And now, at the most painful moment of my life, when I had just lost the man who had been my partner, my confidant, my only real family for over 3 decades, Mr. Vance was treating me like just another employee, as if my 18 years of loyalty, my sleepless nights, my stolen Saturdays, my shared Christmases, meant absolutely nothing. "Angela? Are you still there?" Lucy's voice brought me back to the present. Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I was just remembering. I understand perfectly. Listen, you don't have to decide now, but if you're interested, they can offer you a video interview tomorrow. The position is to coordinate the administrative department of a construction company that's growing fast. The salary is double what you make there. They have private health insurance, and most importantly, they treat people like human beings. When I hung up the phone, I sat in the kitchen, looking at the empty chair where Tom used to sit for breakfast every morning. His favorite mug, a blue ceramic one that said, "World's Best Dad," a gift from Jason when he was 10, was still in the sink. I hadn't had the heart to wash it. The house felt different without him. Bigger, colder, quieter. The wall clock we had bought at a Brooklyn flea market 20 years ago seemed louder than ever. Tick-tock, tick-tock. A constant reminder that time kept moving even though my world had stopped. I picked up my phone and dialed my son's number. I needed to hear his voice, to feel that I wasn't completely alone in the world. "Mom? What's up?" His tone was impatient, as if my call had interrupted something important. "Jason, Dad died yesterday. A heart attack." Silence. A silence so long I thought the call had dropped. "Mom? Are you okay? Do you need anything?" It wasn't, "How are you?" It wasn't, "I'm on my way." It was, "Do you need anything?" As if I were a neighbor asking for a favor. "The funeral is on Saturday, at St. Andrew's, where we got married. Can you come?" Of course. Trish and I will be there. Have you talked to the funeral home? Do you need money for—" "No, I don't need money. I just need you to be here." "Of course, Mom. But listen, I can't talk long right now. I'm in an important meeting. I'll call you later, okay?" He hung up before I could say, "I love you." That night, while sorting through Tom's clothes to decide what he should wear for the viewing, I found a letter in the pocket of his favorite jacket. A letter he wrote for our last anniversary but never gave me. "My dearest Angela, it's been 35 years and I still fall in love every day with your smile, your strength, the way you take care of everyone around you. Sometimes I worry that you give so much of yourself that you forget to take care of you. I promise that in our golden years, I'm going to spoil you like you deserve. I love you, Tom." I cried until I had no tears left. And for the first time in my life, I began to wonder if everything I had given, everything I had sacrificed, had really been worth it. On Thursday, I arrived at the office like a zombie. I had spent the night awake, reading and rereading Tom's letter, feeling each word dig deeper into my broken heart. My coworkers glanced at me with that uncomfortable expression people have when they don't know what to say in the face of someone else's pain. Mercedes, the receptionist, lowered her voice as I passed her desk. "I'm so sorry, Angela. If you need anything—" But her words were cut off when Mr. Vance came out of his office and yelled at me from down the hall. "Angela, the October reports are still not finished. I need everything done before noon." He didn't even ask how I was. He didn't even pretend to care that my husband had died 2 days ago. I sat at my desk and stared at the pile of pending invoices. The numbers blurred before my eyes. I couldn't concentrate. Every time I tried to focus on a figure, the image of Tom on that bench in Washington Square Park invaded my mind. Alone. Buying bread. Dying alone. Mid-morning, I received a WhatsApp message from my daughter-in-law, Trish. A photo of her and Jason at a fancy restaurant, smiling with glasses of wine in their hands. The message said, "Impromptu date night life is for living." She had sent it on the same day her father-in-law died. The same day her husband lost his father. I felt sick to my stomach. During my lunch break, I hid in the bathroom to cry in silence. When I returned to my desk, I found a note from Mr. Vance on my keyboard. "The clients for the Hudson Yards project are waiting for their invoices. We can't afford any more delays. JV." Not "my condolences." Not "take the time you need." Just his initial, as if it were any other memo for any other employee. That afternoon, while organizing the documents Mr. Vance needed for his meeting, I found something that made my blood run cold. An open manila envelope on his desk contained company contracts. But what caught my eye was a handwritten note in the corner of one of the documents. It was Mr. Vance's handwriting. It said, "Angela, layoff for restructuring, January 2025, annual savings, $55,000. My hands trembled as I held the paper. I had been with that company for 18 years. 18 years of absolute loyalty. And he had already decided to fire me in January. Not for poor performance, not for any serious misconduct, for annual savings. It all suddenly made sense. His coldness during my grief, his refusal to give me bereavement days, his rush for me to finish the reports. It wasn't gratuitous cruelty. It was calculated. Why treat someone well when you've already decided to throw them away? I sat down heavily in my chair, feeling the world crumble for the second time in a week. First Tom, now this. Everything I had built, everything I believed was stable in my life, was an illusion. I remembered all the rumors I had heard in recent months about modernization and operational efficiency. I remembered how Mr. Vance had been hiring younger employees for temporary positions that looked suspiciously like my current responsibilities. I discreetly put the document in my purse. I didn't know why, but something told me I was going to need it. On Friday, the day of Tom's wake, I was late for work because I had spent the morning at the funeral home finalizing details. Mr. Vance was waiting for me with his arms crossed and an expression that could have cut glass. "Angela, this is unacceptable. The vendors have been calling all morning asking about their payments. The client from Chicago is threatening to cancel the contract if they don't receive their invoice today. Mr. Vance, it's the day of my husband's wake. I told you I needed the morning off too, and I told you that the job comes first. Always. If you can't handle your personal responsibilities without it affecting your work performance, perhaps you should reconsider if this job is right for you." His words were like slaps. Personal responsibilities. That's what he called my husband's death, my grief, my pain. "You're right," I said with a calmness that surprised me. "Maybe I should reconsider." His expression changed slightly, as if he hadn't expected me to agree with him. That night, the wake was a series of silent humiliations. My son Jason arrived late, apologizing because the traffic was terrible, even though he lived just 20 minutes from the funeral home. Trish showed up in a bright red dress, as if she were going to a party instead of saying goodbye to her father-in-law. Throughout the service, Trish was checking her phone. At one point, she even took a selfie near the casket, whispering to Jason, "To show Mom we actually came." Tom's co-workers filled half the chapel, men weathered by years of hard work, with calloused hands and moist eyes, who had come to say goodbye to a friend. They spoke of him with genuine affection. He was a man of his word, always willing to help. They don't make men like Tom anymore. From my job, no one came. 18 years working with the same people, sharing birthdays, baby showers, Christmas celebrations. And when I lost my husband, not one of them bothered to be there for me. The next day, during the burial, it was just Jason, Trish, a few of Tom's co-workers, and me. A dozen people to say goodbye to a man who had lived 68 years, who had loved deeply, who had worked honestly his whole life. As they lowered the casket, Trish whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Well, at least Mom will have more free time now, right? She doesn't have to cook for two anymore." Jason didn't silence her. He didn't defend me. He just nodded as if it were a perfectly reasonable observation. I went home alone, the house where Tom and I had lived for 15 years, where we had painted walls, hung pictures, planted the small garden in the backyard, where we had dreamed of growing old together. His things were still exactly where he had left them. Tuesday's newspaper folded next to his favorite chair, his reading glasses on the nightstand, his pajamas hanging on the closet door. I poured myself a glass of red wine, something I never did alone, and sat on the sofa where we had watched the news together so many nights. I picked up my phone and found Lucy's number. It was almost midnight when I called her. "Angela, are you okay?" Lucy, that job offer you mentioned. Is it still on the table? Of course. Why? What happened? I told her everything. The document I had found. Mr. Vance's coldness during my grief. The constant humiliation. The certainty that I was going to be fired in January anyway. That bastard, Lucy muttered. Angela, listen to me. I can talk to my bosses first thing tomorrow. If you want, they can do the interview on Monday via video call. And I assure you of one thing. Here, people wouldn't be caught dead missing your husband's wake. When I hung up, I sat in the dim light of my living room, the wine glass half empty and my heart beating with something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't hope, exactly. It was something more dangerous, more powerful. It was determination. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to wait for others to decide my fate. For the first time, I was going to take the reins of my own story. Tom had written in his letter that he worried about me giving so much of myself, that in our golden years, he would spoil me as I deserved. Our golden years had ended before they began. But maybe, just maybe, my golden years were just about to start. Monday morning, I didn't go to work. For the first time in 18 years, my desk remained empty while I was at home, in front of the laptop Tom had given me for our last anniversary. So you can write those stories you always say you're going to write, he had told me with that mischievous smile I missed so much. Now, that computer would serve a completely different purpose. At 9 o'clock, Lucy video called me along with Robert Diaz, the director of Mediterranean Developments in Austin. He was a man in his 50s, with graying temples and a kind look that contrasted sharply with Mr. Vance's coldness. Mrs. Miller, Lucy has told me a lot about you. I am deeply sorry for your recent loss. I can't imagine how difficult this must be for you. His first words were of genuine condolence, not of business, not of deadlines, of humanity. The interview lasted an hour. They asked me about my experience, my achievements, my ideas for improving administrative processes. For the first time in years, someone was actually listening to my answers, nodding with genuine interest, asking intelligent questions that showed they valued my judgment. Mrs. Miller, we would love to have you on our team. The position is yours if you accept it. We can offer you a starting salary of $90,000 a year, full medical coverage, 30 days of vacation, and something very important. Absolute respect for your personal and family life. $90,000. Almost double what I earned with Mr. Vance. After 18 years of miserable raises that barely covered inflation. When would you need me to start? I asked, feeling my heart race. Whenever you can. We understand you're going through a very difficult time. If you accept, you can take all the time you need to handle your affairs in New York and make the move without pressure. After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen, staring at the phone as if it were a magical object. In 1 hour, my life had completely changed. Everything I had thought impossible, escaping Mr. Vance, starting over, being professionally valued, had suddenly become real. But first, I had to face the consequences of my absence. My phone started ringing at 10:30. It was Mr. Vance, of course. Where are you, Angela? The clients are asking about their reports. I have 3 important meetings today, and I need those documents. Mr. Vance, I'm not feeling well. I need a day to... Don't give me excuses. I already gave you 2 days for your personal situation. The company can't stop just because you decided to take an unauthorized vacation. It's not a vacation, I said, feeling anger begin to replace fear. My husband died 5 days ago. 5 days, Mr. Vance. And you're talking to me as if I missed work out of laziness. Life goes on, Angela. Either you come to work right now, or you can consider this conversation your voluntary resignation. I hung up. I literally hung up the phone on my boss of 18 years. And for the first time in decades, I felt free. 2 hours later, my son Jason knocked on the door. He hadn't called first. He just showed up, with Trish by his side, both with expressions that mixed feigned concern with genuine irritation. Mom, Mr. Vance called us. He says you didn't go to work and you hung up on him. What's going on with you? He didn't ask how I was. He didn't hug me. He wasn't worried about my emotional state 5 days after burying his father. His first concern was that his mother had disrespected an authority figure. Sit down, I told them, gesturing to the living room armchairs where we had shared so many Christmases. We need to talk. Trish sat on the edge of the sofa, as if she were afraid the upholstery would stain her pristine white dress. Jason crossed his arms, with that defensive posture he had inherited from his father, but without the gentleness Tom always maintained even in disagreements. I've been offered a job in Austin, I began. A better position, with a better salary, with bosses who treat me like a human being instead of a report dispensing machine. Austin? Trish let out a nervous laugh. Mom, Austin is 1,500 miles from here. How are you going to move at your age? Besides, what are we going to do without you? There it was. The first naked truth. They weren't worried about my well-being. They were worried about losing my services. What are you going to do without me? I repeated slowly. I didn't realize you needed me so much. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mom, you know it's not that, but you're our family. You can't just leave. Family? The word tasted bitter. Jason, your father died 5 days ago. 5 days. How many times have you called me to ask how I am? How many times have you come to keep me company? How many times have you offered to help me with the arrangements, the paperwork, with anything a 63-year-old widow who just lost the love of her life might need? An uncomfortable silence fell. Trish stared at her manicure as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. Mom, we've been busy. Work, you know? Trish is organizing the kitchen renovation, and I have that important project with— Stop, I interrupted him. Just stop. Don't give me excuses. Give me honesty for once in your life. Trish looked up, and in her eyes, I saw something that surprised me. It wasn't guilt. It was resentment. Fine. You want honesty? She said in a sharp voice. We always knew that when Dad died, you'd become our responsibility. That we'd have to take care of you. Visit you constantly. Worry if you're okay. If you need anything. But we never thought you'd just take off to another city like some rebellious teenager. Her words hit me like punches. Our responsibility, not their beloved mother, not someone they wanted around out of love. A burden, a duty, a responsibility. And what about the house? Trish continued. This house is worth a lot of money, Angela. If you go to Austin, what's going to happen with Jason's inheritance? Are you going to sell it? Rent it out? Because we have plans, we have projects, and we need to know what's going to happen with our financial future. There was the second truth. They didn't care about losing me. They cared about losing my assets. Jason shot his wife a warning look, but he didn't contradict her. He didn't defend my right to do what I wanted with my own house. He didn't defend me. Trish is right about one thing, he finally said. We need to talk about practical matters. If Dad left everything to you, that's fine, it's normal. But we have rights too. I'm his only son. This house represents our family's financial security. I stared at them both as if they were strangers. As if instead of my son and daughter-in-law, 2 elegantly dressed vultures had appeared, calculating the value of the remains of my life. You know what? I said, getting up from the sofa. You're right. We do need to talk about practical matters. So let's talk. I went to my bedroom and got the document I had found on Mr. Vance's desk. I returned to the living room and placed it on the coffee table. My boss had already decided to fire me in January. Fire me after 18 years of absolute loyalty. Not for poor performance, for economic savings. Do you know how long it would have taken me to find another job at my age, with my education level in this job market? Jason looked at the document, frowning. Mom, that's illegal. Probably, but real. So I had 2 choices. Wait for him to throw me out like an old rag in January, or take control of my own life now. I chose the latter. Trish stood up, clearly agitated. But what about us? What happens when we have kids and need help? What happens when we get old and need someone to take care of us? We always assumed you'd be here, that we'd be a close-knit family. A close-knit family? I repeated, feeling bitterness spread through my chest like ink in water. Like when you showed up late to your father-in-law's funeral? Like when you took selfies at the wake? Like when you haven't called me once in 5 days to ask if I need anything? The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Jason stood up. Mom, I think you're making emotional decisions. You're hurting, I get it. But moving to another city isn't going to bring Dad back. You'll just be lonelier, more isolated, more vulnerable. Lonelier? I asked, almost laughing. Jason, I've been lonely for years. Lonely in my marriage when your father worked 12-hour days. Lonely at my job when my boss treated me like a machine. Lonely in motherhood when you grew up and decided you didn't need a mother anymore, just a walking ATM. That's not fair, he muttered. Fair? Tell me what's fair about any of this. Tell me what's fair about being denied bereavement leave. About them planning to fire me behind my back. About my own family showing up after my husband's death not to comfort me, but to make sure I don't mess up their financial plans. Trish grabbed her purse with sharp movements. Let's go, Jason. It's obvious your mother has already made her decision. Let's just hope she doesn't regret it when she realizes what she's losing. What I'm losing. I followed them to the door. What exactly am I losing? A job where I'm treated like trash? A son who only calls me when he needs money? A daughter-in-law who sees me as an inconvenience? Jason turned in the doorway, his eyes shining with tears that could have been from pain or rage. You're losing your family, Mom. No, Jason, I replied with a calmness that surprised me. My family lost me a long time ago. I'm just now realizing it. I watched them walk away down the stone path Tom had laid last summer. Their footsteps sounded like hammer blows against my heart. But for the first time in years, I didn't run after them, asking for forgiveness, begging for understanding, offering sacrifices to maintain a peace that only I valued. I closed the door softly and leaned against it. Tom was right in his letter. I had spent so many years taking care of everyone else that I had completely forgotten to take care of myself, but that was about to change. That night, for the first time in 18 years, I didn't set an alarm. I woke up naturally at 8:30 in the morning. There were no ambulance sirens in my head screaming that I was late. There wasn't that sense of panic that accompanied me every morning as the day began to break. Just silence. Peace. I stayed in bed for several minutes, looking at my bedroom ceiling. The water stains that Tom always promised to fix next weekend now looked like maps of imaginary countries. For the first time in decades, I had time to really see them. I got up slowly, unhurriedly. I made coffee in the Italian mocha pot that Tom had bought me 3 Christmases ago. He insisted it made the richest coffee in the world. He was right. The aroma filled the kitchen like a warm hug. While the coffee brewed, I opened all the windows in the house. The crisp November air came in like a blessing, carrying away the accumulated smell of sadness and bringing in the scent of dry leaves from the small backyard garden. For the first time in 5 days, I was truly hungry. Hungry for food. Not just that mechanical need for fuel that had been sustaining my body. I opened the fridge and found eggs. Prosciutto we had bought for a romantic dinner we never got to have. Tomatoes that were still perfect. I cooked a big omelet like I hadn't since Tom had a stomach bug last year. With golden onions, thinly sliced potatoes, that perfect point between creamy and set that I had learned from my mother-in-law decades ago. The house filled with the smell of home, of life, of a reclaimed normality. I ate slowly, sitting at the kitchen table, looking out the window at the small garden where Tom had planted rose bushes that were now beginning to go dormant for the winter. A gray stray cat appeared among the plants and looked at me with yellow eyes full of caution. "Hello, little one," I said to it. "Are you hungry too?" I put some prosciutto on a small plate and left it on the back step. The cat approached, wary but hungry. As it ate, it purred softly. It had been years since I'd fed an animal. Mr. Vance had strict rules about getting home at a certain time, about maintaining routines that didn't interfere with work responsibilities. Pets are a distraction, he'd say. They tie you down, they create obligations, they make you less efficient. Now I understood he wasn't just talking about pets. He was talking about anything that gave me joy, independent of my usefulness to him. At 11, my phone started ringing. It was Mr. Vance again. This time I didn't answer. He kept calling every half hour for the rest of the day. 17 missed calls. I didn't answer a single one. In the afternoon, I decided to do something I had been putting off for years. Clean out Tom's closet. Not to throw his things away. I wasn't ready for that yet. But to organize them. To touch them. To remember. I found things I had forgotten. The shirt he wore on our first date, which he had kept for sentimental reasons, even though it no longer fit. The small tools he always carried in his pockets, tiny screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, small pliers he had accumulated over the years like a surgeon collects instruments. In the pocket of his winter jacket, I found something that made me smile through my tears. A shopping list in my handwriting. Milk, bread, that Greek yogurt you like, batteries for the remote, flowers for Angela, just because. The last line was in his handwriting. He had added it. How many times had he done that over the years? How many small surprises, how many gestures of love had he sewn into our daily routine without me fully noticing? That night, for the first time since his death, I ate dinner without rushing. I poured myself a glass of the red wine we had been saving for a special occasion and made a silent toast to him, to us, to everything we had built together. On Wednesday, I woke up even later, 9:15, a time that once would have filled me with anxiety, but now felt like a decadent luxury. I had breakfast on the small balcony overlooking the street, something I'd never done because I was always running to catch the subway. I watched the children walk to school, young mothers pushing strollers, retirees greeting each other at the corner bakery. New York had a daytime life I had never known. A life of people who didn't run, who took time to talk to shopkeepers, who bought warm bread instead of industrial pastries wrapped in plastic. I decided to take a walk. No destination, no purpose, something I hadn't done since before I was married. I walked the streets of my own neighborhood like a tourist, discovering shops that had been there for years but I'd never noticed, small plazas where elderly neighbors played dominoes under the trees. In a second-hand bookstore, I bought 3 novels. Romance novels, the kind Mr. Vance considered a waste of time and trashy literature. The clerk, a woman my age with purple-dyed hair and kind eyes, recommended a 4th. "You'll like this one," she said. "It's about a woman who starts a new life at 60 after discovering her family took her for granted." I laughed. It was the first time I had laughed since Tom's death. "Am I that obvious?" I asked her. "Not obvious. Free. I can see it in how you walk, how you look at things, like someone who just found out they have a choice." I bought all 4 novels. That afternoon, Lucy called me from Austin. "How are you, Angela? Did you talk to your boss?" "Not exactly," I said. "It was more like I stopped answering his calls." She laughed. "Even better. Have you thought about when you could start here?" "Actually," I felt butterflies in my stomach. "How about next Monday? Would that be too soon?" "Too soon? Angela, you've been putting up with mistreatment for 18 years. Staying one more day would be too soon." On Thursday, I went to the bank. I did something I had never done in my life. I withdrew all my savings. It wasn't much, $20,000 I had scraped together, dollar by dollar over the years. But it was mine, completely mine. The manager, a young man who knew me by sight, asked if I was sure. "That's a lot of cash to carry, Mrs. Miller. Wouldn't you prefer a transfer? A cashier's check?" "No," I told him with a smile that surprised me. "I want to feel that it's mine. I want to touch it." I put the money in the largest purse I owned, and the whole way home, I felt its weight against my hip like a promise of freedom. That night, I called a moving company for Saturday. Just the essentials: clothes, books, a few mementos, the tools of Tom's I wanted to keep. The rest could stay with the house until I decided what to do with it. "Destination?" the man from the company asked. "Austin," I said, and the word felt like a prayer on my lips. Friday morning, Mr. Vance showed up at my door. He hadn't called first. He just appeared, in his impeccable gray suit and with an expression of authority that used to intimidate me, but now just looked pathetic. "Angela, this is ridiculous. I've been trying to reach you for 4 days. The clients are furious. I have commitments to meet. You can't just disappear like some petulant teenager." I looked at him from my doorway, not inviting him in. "Mr. Vance, do you know what I found on your desk last Tuesday?" His expression changed slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." I took the document out of my pocket and showed it to him. "This, my scheduled layoff for January. Annual savings, $55,000. Does that sound familiar?" His face turned the color of ash. "Angela, that's just a budget projection. All departments have to evaluate different scenarios for the next year. It doesn't mean anything concrete. Doesn't mean anything? Like it didn't mean anything to deny me bereavement leave? Like it doesn't mean anything that you've treated me like a report dispensing machine for 18 years? He drew himself up, trying to regain his authoritarian posture. Look, Angela, I know you're going through a difficult time. Your husband's death has you confused, making emotional decisions. But I'm willing to forget these days of absence if you come back on Monday. We could even talk about a small raise for next year. A small raise? After planning to fire me? I wasn't going to fire you. It was just a possibility. One of many options that— Mr. Vance, I interrupted. Do you know how much they offered me in Austin? His expression hardened. I don't care what they offered you in Austin. You have responsibilities here. You have contracts to honor, clients to serve, half-finished projects you can't just abandon. Contracts? What contracts? I'm an at-will employee. I can quit whenever I want with the appropriate notice. 2 weeks' notice, Angela. 2 weeks minimum. I smiled. Mr. Vance, you denied me 4 days for my husband's funeral. 4 days to say goodbye to the man I loved for 35 years. Do you really think I owe you 2 weeks of professional courtesy? He fell silent, his jaw tight. Consider this my verbal resignation, effective immediately. My written resignation will arrive by certified mail on Monday. You can't do this, Angela. You can't just leave me high and dry. I have commitments. I have important clients. You'll ruin me. Life goes on, Mr. Vance, I said, using his own words. We all lose something sooner or later. But that doesn't mean the world stops. I closed the door gently, leaving him standing on my walkway. Through the living room window, I saw him walk to his Mercedes, talking furiously on his phone, probably calling his other employees, demanding they cover my work, stay late, sacrifice their weekends to compensate for my irresponsibility. For the first time in years, that wasn't my problem. That night, I slept deeply, without nightmares, without waking up every 2 hours mentally reviewing the next day's pending tasks. I slept like someone who had finally taken back control of her own life. On Saturday, the movers arrived at 8 in the morning. 3 young, efficient, and respectful men who packed up my new life in less than 4 hours. As they loaded the boxes onto the truck, the gray cat appeared again in the backyard. It looked at me with those yellow eyes that seemed to understand everything. I can't take you with me, little one, I told it. But the lady next door is very kind. I'm sure she'll look after you. As if it understood, it came over and rubbed against my legs once before disappearing into the bushes. By 2 in the afternoon, my life fit into a moving truck and a carry-on bag. It was surprisingly liberating. Sunday morning, as I was finishing packing the last few things in my carry-on, the doorbell rang. It was 10 o'clock, too early for social calls, too late for real emergencies. Through the peephole, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Jason, Trish, and behind them, Mr. Vance. The 3 of them stood on my walkway like a war delegation. I opened the door slowly, not inviting them in. Mom, we need to talk, Jason said in the voice he used as a child when he had broken something important. This is getting out of hand. What is getting out of hand? I asked, crossing my arms. Mr. Vance stepped forward, recovering his usual authoritarian tone. Angela, this is completely unacceptable. You cannot abandon your responsibilities like this. I've had to cancel 3 important meetings this week. The clients are asking for you specifically. The company is in chaos. And so are we, Trish added shrilly. Do you realize what you're doing to us? Jason had to take time off work to come talk to you. I had to cancel my hair appointment, all because you decided to have a midlife crisis. Midlife crisis? I repeated slowly. Trish, I'm 63. If this is a midlife crisis, that would mean I'm going to live to be 126. Don't be funny, Mom, Jason interjected. This is serious. Mr. Vance explained the situation. He says you can come back on Monday, no questions asked, that he's willing to forget this whole episode. I looked at the 3 of them. My son, who hadn't called me for 5 days after his father's death. My daughter-in-law, who had taken selfies at the wake. My boss, who had denied my grief and planned to fire me behind my back. Episode? I said. Is that what you call pain now? Burnout? Reclaiming one's dignity? Mr. Vance sighed with the feigned patience he used with difficult clients. Angela, I understand you're hurting. Your husband's death has affected you more than expected, but you can't make irrational decisions based on temporary emotions. Think about it. 18 years of job stability in exchange for what? An uncertain adventure in another city at your age? At my age, I repeated. Do you know how many times I've heard that phrase this week? At my age, I can't move. At my age, I can't change jobs. At my age, I can't demand respect? Trish let out a nervous little laugh. Well, you have to admit it's a bit dramatic. Moving to another city because your boss told you the job comes first. That's how the real world works, Angela. Adults can't just run away every time they don't like something. Run away? I felt rage begin to boil in my chest. You call taking control of my life running away? Mom. Jason took a step closer, with that condescending expression he had perfected since he got married. Look, we get it. Dad died. You're sad. You feel alone. It's normal. But the solution isn't to destroy everything you've built here. The solution is for us to be more present, to visit you more often. When was the last time you visited me before your father died? I interrupted. Uncomfortable silence. When was the last time you called just to ask how I was? When was the last time you invited me to dinner, or for coffee, or just to watch a movie together? More silence. The last time you came to this house was in April. April, Jason. To borrow money for your friend's honeymoon in Ibiza. And before that, it was last Christmas, when you arrived 2 hours late and left early because Trish had a headache. Trish turned red. That's unfair. I did have a headache. Besides, you're always available by phone. We know that if we need something, we can count on you. Count on me? The phrase tasted like iron in my mouth. What exactly can you count on me for, Trish? For money? For favors? For babysitting hypothetical grandchildren while you go on vacation? Well, she stammered, for all of that, too, but nothing. You have never counted on me as a person, only as a resource. Mr. Vance grew impatient. All right, this is getting far too emotional. Let's get to the concrete facts. Angela, you have an employment contract to fulfill. You have clients who depend on your work. You can't just disappear because you felt offended by a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I took the document from my purse again. Is this what you call a misunderstanding? Layoff for restructuring. January 2025. Annual savings, $55,000. Your handwriting, Mr. Vance. Your signature. Jason took the paper and read it, his brow furrowed. Mom, this is terrible. Mr. Vance, were you really going to fire my mother? Mr. Vance shifted uncomfortably. These are normal budget projections. All companies evaluate different scenarios. It doesn't mean it would necessarily have been executed. Of course not, I said sarcastically. That's why you denied me bereavement days. That's why you treated me like dirt this week. Because you valued me so much as an employee. Trish snatched the document from Jason's hands. Wait. This says $55,000 in annual savings. Angela, is that your salary? You only make $55,000 a year? The question hurt more than any direct insult. Yes, Trish. That's my financial reality. That's why I can't afford designer clothes like you. It's why I cook at home instead of eating in restaurants. It's why I repair things instead of replacing them. But that's less than I make part-time at the boutique, she muttered, as if she had just discovered her mother-in-law was living in relative poverty. And in Austin, they're offering me 90 Zauer IADDED ALMOSTDOUBLE WITHHEALTHINSURANCE WITHRESPECT WITHBOSSESWHOTREATEMELIKEEAHUMANBEINGFROMTHEFRESPERSATION MRVANCEPALED 90,000, added, almost double. With health insurance, with respect, with bosses who treated me like a human being from the very first conversation. Mr. Vance paled. 90,000? Are you sure that's a real offer? It sounds too good to be true. It's probably one of those scams that preys on desperate elderly people. Desperate elderly people? The phrase left my mouth like a roar. Is that your professional opinion of your employee of 18 years? Angela, I didn't mean… You know what, Mr. Vance? You're right about one thing. I am elderly. I'm 63 years old. I've been working since I was 16. I've paid taxes, raised a son, kept a home, buried my parents and my husband. I have survived recessions, economic crises, pandemics, and abusive bosses. And do you know what I've learned in all these years? I took a step closer, looking him directly in the eye. That desperation doesn't come from age. It comes from letting other people decide the value of your life. And I'm done letting any of you decide mine. I'm done allowing it. Jason tried to mediate. Mom, calm down. We understand you're angry, but… No, I cut him off. You don't understand anything. Do you know why I decided to move to Austin, Jason? It wasn't for the better-paying job, although that helps. It wasn't to escape Mr. Vance, although that was necessary. It was because when Lucy called to give me her condolences for your father's death, the first thing she asked me was, "How are you?" Not, "What do you need?" Not, "What are your plans?" But, "How are you?" Tears began to roll down my cheeks, but my voice remained steady. The love of my life died 5 days ago. The man who woke me up with kisses every morning for 35 years. And no one, absolutely no one standing here on my walkway, has asked me how I am. The silence that followed was absolute. The only sound was the wind rustling the dry leaves in the garden. All of you have asked me what I'm going to do. What will happen with the job, with the house, with the money, with your future plans. But no one has asked me how I'm going to survive without the man who was my partner for more than half my life. Trish looked down. Jason ran a hand through his hair nervously. Mr. Vance checked his watch as if he had an urgent appointment. So here is my answer to all your questions, I continued, wiping the tears with the back of my hand. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be better than fine. I'm flying to Austin tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'm going to start a job where I'm valued. I'm going to live in a place where I can see the hills from my window. I'm going to meet people who ask me how I am because they actually want to know. I walked over to the patio table where I had left 3 envelopes I'd prepared the night before. Mr. Vance, this is my formal resignation. Effective immediately. You'll find all the files organized on my computer. The passwords are in the envelope. I handed him the first envelope with hands that no longer trembled. Jason, these are the keys to the house. You can sell it whenever you want. The money from the sale will be your inheritance. Consider it a farewell gift from a mother who loved you more than you valued her. The second, heavier envelope clinked when I handed it to him. Trish, this is for you. My mother's pearl earrings, the necklace Tom gave me on our 10th anniversary, and my grandmother's engagement ring. You always wanted family heirlooms. Now they're yours. Wear them well. The third envelope I kept in my hands. And what's in the last envelope? Jason asked, his voice breaking. This, I said, opening it and pulling out a plane ticket, is my ticket to freedom. I headed for the door, then turned back one last time. If any of you ever truly wonder how I am, you have my number. But don't call me to ask for favors or money, or for me to come back to make your lives easier. Call me only if you want to know how Angela is doing, the woman who finally learned to value herself. I went inside and closed the door softly. Through the window, I saw them arguing heatedly on the lawn for several minutes before they went their separate ways, without saying goodbye to each other. I picked up my suitcase, my purse, and the urn with Tom's ashes that I had decided to bring with me to Austin. Let's go, honey, I whispered to the wooden box where the physical remains of the man of my life rested. It's time for our second honeymoon. This time, in the hill country. The flight to Austin departed on time at 2 in the afternoon. I sat by the window, with Tom's small urn on my lap and a feeling of lightness I hadn't experienced in decades. As New York City faded behind us, I placed my hand on the urn and whispered, "Look, honey, for the first time in years, we're heading toward something, not running away from something." The landscape gradually changed from the gray buildings of the city to the patchwork fields of the heartland, and finally to the rolling green landscape that announced we were approaching the Texas hill country. Every mile felt like years of oppression falling from my shoulders. At the Austin airport, Lucy was waiting for me with a handmade sign that said, "Welcome to your new life, Angela," and a bouquet of bluebonnets and yellow roses that shone like little suns. "How do you feel?" she asked as we walked to her car. And for the first time in a week, someone actually waited for my answer. "Like I've been holding my breath for 18 years and I can finally exhale," I told her. She laughed, but it was an understanding laugh, not a mocking one. "I get that completely. Wait until you see your apartment. It's a few blocks from Zilker Park. From your balcony, you can see the sunrise over the hills." The apartment was small but bright, with high ceilings and huge windows that let in the Texas sunlight like golden waterfalls. The furniture was simple but comfortable, and there were details that showed someone had thought of my well-being. Fresh flowers on the table, tea and coffee in the kitchen, soft towels in the bathroom. "The company keeps it for relocating employees," Lucy explained. "You can stay here while you decide if you want to buy your own place or find another to rent." That first night, after Lucy left, I was alone in my new home. I placed Tom's urn on the table by the window, where he could see the hills, and I opened the windows to let in the warm evening breeze. For the first time since his death, I spoke to him out loud. "Can you imagine, Tom? 63 years old, and it's the first time I've ever lived alone. The first time I'm making all my own decisions without consulting anyone. It's a little scary, but it's also exciting." The breeze rustled the curtains as if it were his reply. On Monday morning, I arrived at Mediterranean Developments an hour early, not out of obligation, but out of nervousness. Robert Diaz, the director, greeted me personally and introduced me to the team as if I were a valuable addition, not just another employee. "Angela brings 18 years of administrative experience," he told my new colleagues. "We're very lucky to have her with us." My desk had a new computer, organized office supplies, and a small succulent plant with a note, "To make you feel at home, the team." During the first week, I discovered what it meant to work in an environment where people mattered as much as results. When I mentioned I was still processing my husband's death, my supervisor, Maria, a woman in her 40s with 3 kids, told me, "Take whatever time you need for arrangements. And if you ever have a day where you just can't focus, let me know. We've all been through losses." It wasn't pity. It was basic humanity. 3 weeks in, I had established a completely new routine. I would wake up naturally around 7, have breakfast on the balcony watching the early morning joggers in the park, walk along the trails for half an hour before work, and come home each day with enough energy to cook, read, or just sit and listen to the sounds of the city. On weekends, I explored the city like a tourist in her own territory. Austin had a vibrant energy that you could feel on every corner. The live music on 6th Street, the grandeur of the state capitol, the bustling farmers markets where the vendors treated me like a neighbor after my second visit. One Saturday morning, while buying peaches at the market, the vendor, an older man with weathered hands and a kind smile, asked me, "You new around here? Haven't seen you before?" "Yes," I replied. "I moved from New York a month ago." "Running from something or looking for something?" he asked with the direct friendliness of a Texan. "Looking," I said without hesitation. "Definitely looking." He threw an extra peach into my bag. "Best peaches in Texas, then, for someone who knows what she wants." That afternoon, as I ate a peach on my balcony, I realized I had gone a full day without thinking about Mr. Vance, my son, or the responsibilities I had left behind. For the first time in decades, my mind was occupied with my present and my future, not with past resentments or suffocating obligations. A month after my arrival, I decided to do something I'd been putting off for years: sign up for dance classes. There was a small studio near my apartment that offered 2-stepping lessons for beginners. "I've never 2-stepped," I confessed to Brenda, the instructor, an energetic woman in her 50s with curly hair and sparkling eyes. "Perfect," she said. "No bad habits to break. You just have to let the music move you." The first few classes were a disaster. I stepped on my partner's feet, got confused with the turns, and laughed at my own mistakes until my stomach hurt. But there was something liberating about moving without a utilitarian purpose, just for the pleasure of movement and music. You know what the most beautiful thing about dancing is? Brenda asked me after the fourth class, when I had finally managed to complete a basic sequence without stumbling. What? That you can't think about anything else while you're doing it. Your mind has to be completely present in your body, in the music, in the moment. It's meditation in motion. She was right. While I danced, there were no pending invoices, no painful memories, no worries about the future. There was only the rhythm, my body rediscovering its ability to move with joy. And the feeling of being alive in ways I had forgotten existed. 2 months after my arrival, I received my first text from Jason. I had been expecting it, wondering how long it would take for him to need something from me. "Mom, how are you? Trish and I were talking. We want to visit you in Austin. When is a good time?" He wasn't really asking how I was. He was asking to set the context for his next request. I replied honestly, "I'm doing very well, better than I have in years. If you want to visit because you genuinely want to see how I'm doing, you're welcome any weekend. Just let me know in advance so I can get a place ready for you." His response came 3 days later. "Great. We can come next Saturday. By the way, we need to talk about some papers for the house that need your signature." There it was, the real reason for the visit. "Jason," I wrote back, "if you're only coming for paperwork, you can mail it to me. If you're coming to see me as your mother, to see my new life, to spend time with me with no hidden agenda, then I'll be waiting with open arms. The choice is yours." He didn't reply. That same week, however, I received an unexpected call that filled me with joy. It was Elena, the daughter of Maria, my supervisor. She was 8 and had heard about me at home. "Ms. Angela? My mom says you know how to make really yummy barbecue. Can you teach me? I want to surprise my dad for his birthday." Her voice was so sweet, so genuinely enthusiastic, that I immediately said yes. The following Saturday, instead of hosting my son with his hidden agenda, I hosted Elena and her little brother, Mario, who was 6. Maria brought them to my apartment and stayed to help, but mostly to enjoy watching her kids learn something special. "The first thing you have to understand," I told the kids as we prepped the ingredients for the side dishes, "is that barbecue isn't just food, it's love in the form of smoke." Elena solemnly wrote in a notebook, "BBQ fwashiu love smoke." Mario, who was more practical, asked, "But does it taste good?" The 4 of us laughed until our stomachs hurt. We spent 3 hours cooking together. The kids helped mix the potato salad, shucked the corn, and decorated the table. Maria and I drank sweet tea and talked about work, life, and the challenges of being working mothers in the modern world. When the brisket I'd started the night before was finally ready, we ate together on my balcony, watching the sunset over the hills. Elena declared it was the best food in the universe, and Mario asked if he could come cook with me every Saturday. "Anytime," I told them, and I meant it. After they left, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. My phone had been silent all day. Jason hadn't written back. Neither had Trish. But for the first time in decades, that silence didn't hurt. It didn't make me feel abandoned or rejected. It made me feel free. I picked up Tom's urn and placed it on my lap. "You know what, honey? I think what you meant in your letter about our golden years was this. Not that you were going to spoil me, but that I was going to learn to spoil myself. That I would discover I deserve children's laughter, sunsets over the hills, jobs that value me, and friends who ask how I am because they truly want to know." A mockingbird landed on my balcony railing and looked at me curiously. "And I also think," I continued, "that these golden years are just getting started." 6 months later, as I was preparing my first big 4th of July barbecue, the great American holiday where the whole neighborhood smells of charcoal and freedom, I got a notification on my phone that made me smile with a mixture of satisfaction and melancholy. Vance Construction files for bankruptcy after federal investigation. The online news article explained how an audit had uncovered systematic accounting irregularities and abusive labor practices spanning more than a decade. Mr. E. Vance had lost not only his company, but also his reputation. Several former employees had sued for wrongful termination and illegal working conditions. The man who had told me that the job comes first now had no job at all. I closed the article and went back to my barbecue prep. I had learned that the sweetest revenge wasn't the suffering of those who had hurt me, but my own happiness flourishing without them. The barbecue that day wasn't just for me. Over these 6 months, my small apartment had become a meeting point for people who, like me, had decided it's never too late to start over. There was Brenda, my dance instructor, who at 55 discovered her husband was cheating and chose divorce over silent humiliation. There was Maria with her kids Elena and Mario, who had adopted the woman who taught them recipes and told them stories about New York as their honorary grandmother. There was Joaquin, my 70-year-old neighbor, also a widower, who had found in our friendship the companionship he needed without the complications of romance. And there was Rosa, the latest to join our little circle, a 58-year-old woman who had worked for 30 years as a housekeeper for a wealthy family, until she discovered they had never paid her Social Security taxes. Rosa had come to Austin fleeing exploitation, just like me. "You know what's the strangest thing?" Rosa said to me as we chopped vegetables for the coleslaw. "For 30 years, I got up every day worrying about making that family happy. I cleaned their house better than my own. I cooked their favorite meals. I looked after their children as if they were mine. And when I told them I needed them to pay what they owed me legally, they looked at me like I was a stranger asking for a handout." "It's because you were never a person to them," I replied, slowly stirring the potato salad. "You were a function. When the function started to require human rights, you were no longer useful to them." Brenda, who had been listening while making a pitcher of sweet tea, added, "My husband was the same with me. For 28 years I was the perfect wife, the ideal hostess, the devoted mother. But the day I found out about his affairs and demanded an explanation, he told me I had become too complicated, as if asking for respect was an unreasonable demand." Maria, who was supervising Elena and Mario playing on the balcony, joined the conversation. "My ex-mother-in-law used to say that women of our generation didn't know our place, that we were too ambitious, too demanding. But you know what? She was right. Our place isn't where others decide to put us. Our place is where we decide to be." Joaquin, who had been quiet while shucking corn, looked up with his bright blue eyes. "My Maria always used to say that freedom wasn't doing what you want, but wanting what you do. You three have found that. I can see it in how you talk, how you move, how you laugh." He was right. In these 6 months, I had rediscovered my laugh. Not the nervous laugh I used to smooth over uncomfortable conversations, but the genuine, belly-deep laugh that erupted when something was truly funny. Like when Elena asked if fish get carsick in the ocean, or when Brenda tripped during a dance class and declared that gravity was sexist. Like when Rosa tried to use my coffee maker for the first time and coffee shot up to the ceiling, decorating my kitchen with little brown specks we decided to call caffeinated abstract art. After the meal, while everyone was relaxing on my balcony watching the fireworks in the distance, I excused myself to call Lucy. I wanted to thank her again for changing my life with that phone call months ago. "I didn't change your life," Lucy told me. "You had everything you needed to do it yourself. You just needed an open door and the courage to walk through it. But it was your call that showed me other options existed. Angela, can I confess something? I didn't just call you because I thought of the job. I called because when I heard about Tom's death, I remembered the person you were before that job slowly consumed you. I remembered the woman who organized the most cheerful parties, who always had time to listen to her colleagues, who cooked for everyone when someone was going through a tough time. And I thought, that woman deserves better." Her words went straight to my heart. For years, I had believed I was invisible, that my kindness wasn't valued by anyone. But Lucy had seen, she had remembered, and she had acted. After I hung up, I returned to the balcony where my new family was sharing stories under the glow of the distant fireworks. Elena showed me a drawing she had made of all of us as superheroes. I was there with an orange cape and a chef's hat, with the superpower of making people feel loved with food. "Do you know which is my favorite superpower of all?" I asked Elena. "Which one?" "Yours. Your superpower is asking questions no one else dares to ask. Like when you asked me why I was crying the first day we met, and I could explain to you that sometimes people cry not just from sadness, but also from relief." Elena smiled with the natural wisdom that children have. "And you don't cry from sadness anymore?" "I still cry for Grandpa Tom sometimes," I told her honestly. But now I also cry from joy, from gratitude, from love for all the good people who have come into my life. That night, after everyone had gone home, I was alone on my balcony with a glass of wine and my phone in my hand. I had a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. "Hi, Mom. It's Jason. Trish and I are getting a divorce. She got the house. I'm living in a small apartment near Penn Station. I don't know if you want to know this, but I miss you. Not to ask for anything. I just miss you." It was the most honest message I had received from my son in years. For the first time, there was no hidden agenda, no request disguised as concern, just a vulnerable admission that he missed me. I replied after thinking about it for an hour, "Jason, I'm very sorry you're going through a difficult time. If you want to talk, if you really want to talk about how you are and how I am, with no expectations or hidden agendas, you can call me. But if you're looking for me to go back to being the mother who solves problems and lends money to cover crises, that woman doesn't exist anymore." His reply came immediately. "I don't want money, Mom. I just want to know if we can try to get to know each other again, as the people we are now, not as the roles we used to play." For the first time in decades, I recognized the boy I had raised in those words. "Come whenever you can," I wrote. "Austin is beautiful in the spring, but come without Trish, without drama, without crises to solve. Come as my son who wants to spend time with his mother. What if I don't know how to do that? What if we've been disconnected for so long that we don't know how to be together without conflict?" His vulnerability moved me. "Then we'll learn together. I'm learning to be a new version of myself too. We can be beginners together." 3 weeks later, Jason arrived on a morning flight. I recognized him immediately at the gate, but something had changed about him. He walked more slowly, with less arrogance. His eyes held a sadness I hadn't seen since he was a teenager. We hugged with the awkwardness of two people who have been separated by emotional oceans but genuinely want to reconnect. "Mom," he said as we walked to my apartment, "I didn't know how to apologize for all these years. I didn't even know where to start." "Start by telling me how you really are," I said. "Not how you should be, or how you wish you were, just how you are." And for the first time in decades, my son told me the truth. He told me about his marriage that had been a performance for years, about his job that stressed him out so much he had developed ulcers, about the constant pressure to maintain an image of success that never felt authentic. "I always thought I had to be perfect to deserve your love," he confessed as we shared brisket on my balcony. "And when I realized I wasn't perfect, I decided it was easier to keep you at a distance than to disappoint you." "Jason," I said, taking his hand for the first time in years, "I never asked you to be perfect. I just wanted you to be happy. I know that now, but it took me a long time to understand." We spent a week together rediscovering each other. I showed him Austin, introduced him to my friends, we cooked together, and we walked along the park trails talking about childhood memories we had forgotten we shared. On the last day of his visit, as he was packing to go back to New York, he asked me, "Do you think we can have a real relationship now? As a real mother and son? Not the people we pretended to be?" "I think we already are," I replied. "We just have to keep building it, one day at a time." After he left, I sat on my balcony with Tom's urn, watching the hills that I now knew in all their variations. Misty in the winter, vibrant in the spring, golden in the summer, melancholy in the fall. "You know what I learned this year, honey?" I said to the warm breeze. "That freedom isn't the absence of responsibilities, but the ability to choose which responsibilities we accept and which we don't. That love isn't infinite sacrifice, but authentic reciprocity. And that it's never too late to become who you really are." A mockingbird landed on the railing and looked at me curiously as if it were listening. "And I also learned," I continued, "that our golden years aren't something other people give us. They're something we give ourselves when we finally understand our own worth." The sun was setting over the hills, painting the sky in oranges and pinks that rivaled the colors of the most perfect sunset. For the first time in my 63 years, I felt completely at home in my own life. Have you ever experienced something like this? Or do you know someone who has gone through a similar situation? Tell me your story in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps this message reach someone who might need to hear it today.